What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Dave Gold Evolve podcast. Today on the show, we've got Steven Steers. And Steven is a public speaking coach and sales consultant. And this guy is a wealth of knowledge and really good vibes. Okay. Lots of great enthusiasm. So we're thrilled to have you on the show today.
Hey man, thank you so much for having me, and right back at you, man. Good vibes, recognize good vibes. So let's spread it with the world.
Amazing. So let's jump right into it. How about you give us a little bit of a background on where you're from, what you went through growing up, and how you got into public speaking and consulting, giving back to, entrepreneurs and guys that are trying to spread their message and increase their brand.
Yeah, happy to do that, man. So I'm a New York City native. And when I say that, I was literally born in New York City. I lived there for most of my life. I've actually been fortunate to live internationally. I've lived in Germany, I've lived in Spain, Mexico, Ecuador, Peru, a bunch of different places. And I think that's given me a cool global perspective, which I'm sure I'll unpack a little bit with you today. And I'm currently speaking to you from Playa del Carmen, Mexico, because I wanted to live near some sun. And sun just sets the mind at ease, no matter what stress you have. So I highly recommend anybody adopt that. But
my origins, playa.
A la playa. Let's do it. But my origin story, I come from humble beginnings. My parents are immigrants from the Jamaican island in the West Indies, and we didn't come up with much. But one of the things I learned quickly was you have your two hands and you have to make use of those things. So for men as well, because I know that's our audience here, right? Dave Gold Evolve, the group, the mastermind is about self-love, personal branding, and leveling up your consciousness. One of the things that changed me as a man was understanding that I have to write my own ticket. I have to punch my own ticket after I write it, and I have to go through with that. And as far as sales and public speaking go, sales is the one skill, whether you want to get a date, you want to get a job, you want to convert a customer, you want to get a free coffee at the coffee house, you're selling all the time. And if you know how to sell to people and how to listen to people, more importantly, you're always going to be in a position to win and get what you want because you're helping others get what they want. So sales is how I've been able to achieve a life where I can live internationally. I haven't made crazy amounts of money, but I'm sure if you heard about the things that I do, you'd be surprised about how much I make, because it's like, wow, you can do that with that much? It's like, yeah, imagine what you can do as well.
Amen.
So yeah,
I'll jump off that, just right now. I'll jump in and just say, I was traveling the world. I talk about this on the podcast, 17 cities in 14 months. For me, it wasn't about making a lot of money, but I had that selling ability. I was doing business development. Yes. And so people saw the life that I was living. They were a little bit jealous at times. And I was telling them, listen, it's not easy doing what I'm doing. But if you know how to connect with other people, make your message, have an impact with your message, and also to provide value to someone or a business that's going to better their life, that can take you to all four corners of the globe.
Absolutely, dude. 100% agree on that. And then I think the other part that's interesting from our first conversation too is you need to know what your why is, especially as a dude. Because if you don't, somebody else is going to try to tell you what that is. And as a guy who's grown up and thrown all these messages were thrown at me, you kind of lose track of where you are sometimes, and that can slow your growth and development of your own consciousness. So that's an important thing, which leads me to the public speaking side of things. As a man, as a leader, as a business owner, you need to know your own story. And if you know your own story and you can formulate your story into an articulated and clear and authentic argument for why you believe what you believe, people will follow you. That's essential. And that means, comes down to your offer as a businessman. That comes down to if you want to go out with somebody or you want someone to get on your team, knowing what you think and how to explain that properly shows huge amounts of confidence. And confidence gets people to want to be on your team. So I think it's a huge mission. If you know how to sell items, products, or services, really important, but you need to know how to sell yourself. And it starts with knowing what you think and why you think that way. and then turning that story into something powerful that gets people motivated to be like, you know what? Dave Gold and his team, I love their story because it helps me tell my own story better, which is what we all want to do. And that's why I do the work that I do.
Beautiful. So I 100% agree that when you can own your story and vulnerably open up about that to the world, not everyone is going to connect with it, but your tribe is going to love it and they're going to appreciate it and they're going to gravitate towards you and they're going to want to support you through your ups and your downs in your journey in life. And that's why, you know, as Ralph Waldo Emerson said, your speech is power. It's to persuade, to convert, to compel. And so when I see what you're doing, helping guys to get out in front of an audience and spread their message with public speaking, I feel like there's such a great cause behind it. So let's say someone is listening to this and they just got intrigued. They're like, now I wonder, what if I get into public speaking? How would that affect and change their brand authority in their niche?
Oh boy, I love this question. On Facebook, particularly in a space like I work in, consulting, coaching, authorship, courses, all these types of things, it's a super crowded space. You're clamoring for attention from lots of different people, and that's the hardest part. And if you look down your feed or in groups, largely people are posting and doing the exact same things all across the board. There's a lack of originality. It's boring, it's homogenous, and you feel like people are selling you on something. And I don't remember who says it, people love to buy, but they hate to be sold to. So what I've discovered with public speaking is no matter what, even if Dave, you and I, even if I was in Zagreb when you were in Zagreb before, and like we'd grown up on the same street, but we grew up in different houses and we went to the same school, the way we look at the world and our own story is unique to us because it's our filters, right? That's the thing that we put out into the world. So when you are able to, like I said, own your own story and share it with people, you don't have competition anymore. It's one of the key ways that you can differentiate yourself in any market because people can see your body, they can hear the way you talk, they hear the way that your life story has affected your own path. And if you do it right and you tell a good story, you get people to see it in themselves. There's a quote I love. I cite this one all the time. It's by Horace, who I believe was like an ancient Roman or Greek philosopher who says, you need change only the name and the story is about you. So for your biggest success, Dave, or for anyone listening, your biggest success, the heights of what you've achieved so far, or the lowest of lows, any person who's listening to that story can imagine themselves achieving or that extreme amount of failure. And that is what the power of storytelling is. So if you're able to get on stage and confidently share those vulnerable moments, those low points, those imperfections you have, anyone who's a part of your tribe is gonna be like, wow, I can do that too. And I wanna follow you along. So to answer your question in a shorter version, it's one of the best lead generators of all time because there's no competition. It's just you, what you've been through, and no one can compete with what you had to go through to get you from where you were to where you are right now, sharing that moment.
When you can change that narrative as we do in Dave Gold Evolve, which is from competition to collaboration, and you're only competing with yourself, a lot of things start to open up and a huge monkey gets thrown off your back. And another one that I love is ABC. And it doesn't stand for always be closing. It stands for always be connecting.
Love it.
And when you're always connecting with your audience, they don't feel like you're trying to close them. They feel like you're just relating to them, that they're getting to know you in a deeper way, which, you know, is really interesting. And it's also interesting that you said, solve, don't sell, to help people to see an opportunity and the cost behind working with you. So how about you elaborate on why people should solve problems instead of sell the solution to problems?
Awesome question, Dave. Anybody listening, I guarantee somebody jumped into one of your DMs and was just like, hey, I do this, you need it right now. And you're just like, and even if you needed it, that was exactly it, spot on. It felt kind of gross. It's like you didn't even bother to talk to me or get to know what I might be interested in to be able to make an offer to me about what it looks like. And selling never feels good when you're receiving it or you're doing it because you're pushing really hard to convince someone that you're worth it. Versus the other side of, if I jumped into someone's DM and I visited your profile and did some research and I said, hey, I love that post, man. What inspired you to share that message? Then we get into a conversation. And then because we have a conversation and we built a rapport, now I can actually ask you a couple of deeper questions like, yo, really curious, man. Why is that a struggle? Is that a struggle for you right now? And then we can go in and start to problem solve. So I want to share this actually. So if you're selling to a business, there's 4 reasons people will do business with you. You're going to help make them more money. You're going to help save them money. You're going to increase their efficiency, or you're going to mitigate their risk. That's in a B2B setting. In a B2C setting, so like you selling to a person, someone who like.
That's what we're doing here,
right.
in the coaching industry. All right. We're working with our clients one-on-one and in the group setting. So how do you do it in a B2C setting?
B2C setting. So that's what I'm going to cover. There's 3 reasons people buy in a B2C setting. It's to increase their health, their wealth, or their relationships. Mm-hmm. So having those value propositions available to you in the frame of how you can talk to someone, you need to first understand if there is a problem at all. You can't assume a problem. You have to listen and get to a place where someone's okay with talking to you that they might have a problem. And then from there, it's okay to say, hey man, I don't know if I could even help you, but I'm willing to listen and acknowledge. And if I can, let's talk about that. And if I can't, I'm gonna point you in the right direction. Solving means you recognize that you might not be a fit and you're offering the person some time to understand if it works. And that builds a lot of trust.
This is a big one, is not selling to everyone, but niching down to a market that you want to work with and understanding that target market so that when those guys come to you, okay, they can see that you're a leader, a thought leader, all right, and you really know what you're talking about, and that's your specialty, right? They say the riches are in the niches.
Facts.
And if you're just trying to sell to everyone, it's going to be really hard for people to understand what you do and why you do it, what the purpose is behind it. All right, so let's move on. So you decided now that you're going to dive into public speaking. Maybe you're going to go and do a TED Talk, all right? And there is some fear that's coming up there, all right? You're like, I don't know. So how do I do this? How should I go about, providing that speech? And as Cato the Elder said, grasp the subject and the words will follow. So you were talking about memorizing bullet points, not the whole speech, to have a format in your story. And I want to understand how you do that.
Yeah, I love this question too, man. I think actors memorize the entirety of their script and then recite it. As a speaker or as a person who wants to get on stage, authenticity is the key. So people can tell if you're acting. So let's pretend you've memorized the heck out of your speech, word for word for word, and then one of the lights falls down behind you. Now you've got to remember your exact place in that speech to get back to where you were, and then now you're jostled, right? Versus if I know the general outline of what I want to cover, how those things relate to each other, I can be much more free-flowing, more authentic, and ready for whatever happens because I know the general direction I'm going in, not the intricacies of every single step. And I've just found for me, I've spoken internationally in places like Turkey, Puerto Rico, Belgium, etc., and all over the United States. That authenticity, and when those mistakes happen, that's like a great place to build rapport with people. So I would just say, bullet points are much faster for you to remember, easier for you to navigate, and allow you to really put yourself into whatever content you're saying versus just memorizing lines. And I want to actually put this in the context of like dating too, because I know some of the guys here, this is how they got in here.
When they go and they meet a woman for a date, okay, or they're talking to them on Tinder or on Instagram, what do you think is the best way for them to speak to them?
Well, so this is a thing that I'm still figuring out myself to some degree, but I want to share this example, right? Because it changes every day, right? When I was using those apps, like when they first came out, it was a different scene than it is now.
Now it's more accepted. Now it's mainstream because in the end of the day, in 2020, this pandemic happened and it wasn't so possible to go and meet a nice lady at the bar anymore, unless you're living in Sweden.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know, guys that were not really active with their brands and with their online image, they needed to start to improve that. They needed to start to put more focus on their written word and the way in which they were conducting themselves online. For me, I saw that I was able to facilitate deep connections by having online dates, doing a dance party online, all right, or watching a movie and, you know, doing a little cheers with some beer or wine, all right. Everything went virtual. But at the same time, that means that even more emphasis went on to the words that were being said, because sometimes the tonality or the energy could be misinterpreted.
Totally, man. The best sales tool of all time is the words that come out of your mouth. So where I add this to it is, I'm sure like for anybody who got into self-development or personal development, I personally started with, I wanted to pick up girls, man. Like as men, especially as we're younger and coming up, it's like, oh man, I want to have like this beautiful woman. This is what I'm working so hard for. And
you want to fix your sex life. Like if you're a guy,
that's the first place.
You didn't learn it in school, which most of us don't, and you didn't have a, father figure or a brother or friends that really, you talked to them about that. You opened up with them. You had those experiences early on, which to many women's surprise, actually a lot of men don't have those experiences.
Even less today.
Yeah. So they struggle with their dating life. And I see especially entrepreneurs who, they get into the business world and they start doing really well. And they just think that naturally, like the girl is going to come along, like in the fantasy, like the girl usually has that fantasy, but sometimes the guy does too. And it doesn't happen like that. You really need to put a little bit of work into improving your image and also your social dynamics.
It's all work, like 100%. And to the other point I wanted to make, you can learn. When I first got into like game and self-development in that regard, like they had all these lines you could use. And I was like, wow, that worked. Oh my goodness, I got a date. And then in sales, same thing. You could use this great line to get someone to book a meeting with you. But when they book a meeting, you're not that guy. You're disingenuous, which means you're further behind now because now they just don't trust you. You had this great line. So they had these expectations of what you were and how you were going to be. And you couldn't back it up with you were just all juice, no sauce, right? There was nothing to it. So when I say leaders need to own their own story, you need to be really clear as a man and as a presenter who you are. And that needs to be almost more present than your content, because if you just memorize a line, you're nowhere in there to be found. So you need to leave room in any interaction you have to let yourself shine through, because people buy you at every stage of the interaction. Make sure that's what they're aware of and what they have access to. And as I said earlier, you don't have competition for that, guys. You don't have any competition. If you know yourself, own yourself, and show up the right way on everything you do.
We got some sirens in the background right now. I want to elaborate on what we're talking about right now, which is that you want to evoke some emotion, and just dropping some corny pickup line, all right, or reading some, outdated book like The Game, which happens to be in my desk drawer for some reason in this Airbnb. I have no idea why. Okay,
it's not your copy.
It's not mine. I've never read it. I swear to God. All right, but okay. I'm going to drop another one. Maya Angelou said that she learned that people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. So,
Oh,
how do you get up in front of an audience, okay, or even if it's just a one-on-one, and you move someone and you make them emotional in your speech, like Barack Obama? Not everyone liked him, but even if you didn't like him, it triggers you in that other way. So, how do you really move someone with your speech?
okay, this is a great series of questions. And I think it really starts with a story. So there's, to me, in my experience and what has helped me and helped people I work with really kind of own in and move people, you got to have a story. And there's three questions you should always ask before you tell any story, especially if it's to an audience. And this is for the guys, just to own your own mission and everything you're working on. Number one is, what do you want your audience to learn or achieve by listening to you? So I don't know if you're selling something in business and you're presenting about business, what are you going to give to them for spending that time? Be aware of that. Make that present. Put that on a piece of paper. Make it clear. I want them to learn how to fish. Boom. Okay. Now, how do you want to make your audience feel? Do you want them to feel empathy? Do you want them to feel fear? Do you want them to feel motivated? Do you want them to feel sadness? What is it? You need to label the emotion you want to put out into the world first. And then, what do you want them to do after they hear the story? So when you have all of this together, now you have a framework to fit a story into. So this could be your biggest triumph, right? You want to motivate people. You could talk about the agency that you've come from. So what I mean by that is you had this really deep struggle as a teenager. You had all these pimples and no one liked you and you were the ugly duckling, picked last. You were 5 feet when your classmates were 6 feet tall. And then everyone shunned you. And then one summer you grew to be 6'6". And now you were making it on the teams. And you took that stress, that strain, and that anger you had and turned it into something, and you built this great business, right? Now it's like, man, I remember when I was picked on. I remember when I wasn't as tall as I wanted to be, and I persisted. Yeah, that's my story too. And now I'm on your team because it's like, I can do it too. And now, if you tell me what I can do next with that, oh, you have a mastermind, Dave, where I can meet other guys who are doing the same thing, just like that, and we can all grow together? Bro, like, I probably need to sign up for that. So it starts with those three questions. What do you want your audience to learn or achieve? What do you want your audience to feel? Label that and be clear about it. And then what do you want them to do with that story? Those are the places I would start with. And that's going to help you build emotion in to project that emotion. And I mean that in the kindest way possible to the audience to get them into your frame and feeling what you want them to feel.
But wait, let's say someone decides they're going to take your advice and make a story video or a story post, but they don't really understand how to do it effectively. What are the most common mistakes that you see guys do when they try to push that story on others, but it doesn't come off authentic or the right way?
Okay, I'd like this one too. And this is a nuanced thing. It depends on the guy, it depends on the audience, it depends on lots of factors. But one of the biggest things I see people get wrong with storytelling is they think their story is about them. I'm going to repeat that. They think that telling their story is about them. Why did they get that wrong? Because a lot of people I talk to every day are like, man, I have this crazy story I went through. I've been through so many challenges. I want to share it with the world and inspire people. And that's good. Like, it's hard to have a story. It's hard to have the confidence to share a story. But like I said, that quote from Horace, change only the name and the story is about you. As businessmen, as men in general, leaders, absolutely. Our job is to help others tell their own story better. Your products that you sell help the person who you sell them to tell a better narrative about their own life. So with every story you tell, if you're telling a story about what you went through, it needs to lead to a logical place where the person reading it can see themselves and want to take action. So people get wrong. It's like, oh, I'm just unburdening myself with this story because it makes me feel good. I want to inspire you. Inspire me to do what? Right? What do you want to inspire me to do? So I think it comes off inauthentic when it's so blatantly like bloviating and like, oh, I'm great. Look at what I've done here. No, make it about the audience because you're helping them tell their story. Keep that present in everything you do, and that's going to get the right people to ring the bell, cut the check, and spend time with you, and tell everyone else that you're that dude.
So you hear that, guys? Stop throwing the dart blindly at the wall and understand what your goal is when you're trying to tell this story. As Lawrence J. Peters said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else. and honestly, man, I think that it ties into another massive value bomb that you were giving in a video on Thanksgiving, which is the 4-burner theory. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that today, but
sure, man.
Yeah, it was really interesting when you brought that up because you were talking about how to heat up your clients, but also how to implement it into the structure of your business. So let's hear more about this 4-burner theory.
Absolutely, man. And appreciate that you did your research as well. Always feels good. 4-burners theory is really simple. So I love to cook. So I want to bring analogies back to cooking because if you can think about a concept and place it into real life, I don't know if you guys cook, but if you don't, you should learn because it's a skill for life, just like selling. Know how to cook, know how to clean, know how to sell. You'll always be able to eat. That's my philosophy. But
I've been cooking more this past few weeks. We got an 8 p.m. curfew in Budapest.
Oh, boy. 8
I've been making some nice, slow cooked chicken, some, shakshuka in the pan.
Shakshuka, what is that?
So shakshuka is actually an Israeli kind of like Middle Eastern dish where you put tomato sauce in the pan and then you make some room for some eggs and you slowly cook it with some peppers and onions. Really good. Highly recommend it.
You'll have to send me a recipe for that.
I will.
Absolutely. So 4-burners theory, your typical stove has 4 burners, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And if you want to, you could apply this to anything that you're working on actually. But there's 4 timelines that you want to pay attention to. There's the immediate. So if you're really hungry and you're going to cook a meal, what's your appetizer or snack that you could have in the meantime to just stave off hunger and not be loopy, right? That's your right now. You need to have a right now strategy in your business to get clients in really quick if you're in a cash crunch. What are you going to do? What activities are you going to track? You need to be putting that out there. The next is your short term. So once you have a little calories in your stomach and you're not looping around and crazy, what are some quicker ways that you can build trust, get people to notice you, and get people into your funnel to start selling to them? You can use this in dating or otherwise if you want. Then you have your medium term. So larger client, someone who's already established, who you're going to need to nurture for a little bit longer, build a rapport with, or whatever. Have a strategy in place for that group. And then you have your long term. So this could be like your lamb that needs to sit on the stove or in the oven for a long time before it's juicy, but you're aware of the long timeline. Or that beautiful girl who you've been working on for years and years to get a date with. You got to have a plan to nurture and keep that person interested and aware of you over the course of a long time.
Yeah, so she's not going to be a one-night stand type of girl. She's going to want to wait and make sure that you're really real and that you're really into her.
Exactly. So you got to have these strategies aware. You got to be aware of these strategies in your life and in your business to say, where do these fall and how do I prioritize what they are? And that's why I believe 4-burners theory is a great thing to adopt into your business, because you can say, oh, I can segment my attention, my efforts, and I'll always have something to eat, which is important in business.
Amazing. So what brought you down to Mexico?
Oh, man. Mexico is a place that I love. I think it's a country I've visited more than any other. The people here are amazing. The food is awesome. The culture is really strong. And it just frankly feels like home. So it's always been a place I wanted to spend more significant time. And then with the situation we're in, where people are in curfews and lockdowns and all this other stuff, I was living back in New York City where I'm from, and I just didn't like the energy. So much like you, right? it's all about self-love and building up your own consciousness. And I saw those things dwindling in myself, just being locked in my apartment and unable to go outside and see the sun. So I did some really hard thinking and asked for some advice from some people who I'm really close to, did a lot of journaling. And I just decided that the most value I can bring to my clients, myself, and to the world is to do something completely different and follow my own advice and go to a place where I've had a chance to be happier, where there's sunlight all the time and I can walk around and just not feel so anxious. And I'm happy to report it's one of the best decisions I've made this year so far.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's it been like, changing up your environment? I know a lot of the guys that I work with, there's a lot of fear there of stepping out of their comfort zone, of the place that they call home, and going and living someplace else. Sometimes the fear is that, oh, I'll never want to go back to my home, okay, or how will I, adapt into this new society? Maybe they don't speak, you don't speak the native language. So what have been so far, I know you haven't been doing this for so long, so what have been so far your struggles, but also your, achievements or breakthroughs, changing up the environment?
A ton of stuff, man, like innumerable, and still things that I'm processing as well. One example I want to put out here before I jump into that, in classical history, when men were growing up, you had to leave your mother's house and go out with the other men to learn what manhood was. You had to learn maybe to hunt, to fish, to sharpen weapons, to learn how to just take care of yourself so that you could be of value to the tribe that you have. I don't think that motif has changed as a thing that men need to do, but it has become a thing that is less common and almost shunned, which I don't understand. So I want to put that narrative back out into the world and say, it is exceptionally difficult to go to a new environment anytime that you do, because it's new and it's frightening and it's scary and it's just frankly something different. That's always going to be strange for you. But as a man, as a business person, the ability to be fully in that environment and to bring the skills and the confidence that you have to test it out in new places is what allows you to level up massively as a man, to love yourself more, that you're courageous and you can take risks to see how you fit into new circumstances. And just to be honest, man, traveling is one of the things that has made my consciousness on untold level 100. Like, you just are so aware of what's going on around you. So I think for that, any guy who's thinking about it, I'll be honest, all it takes is buying a plane ticket. Really, that's it. A couple $100, you could be in a new place. It's that simple. So that's number one. Number two is everyone's got fear and everyone's afraid of jumping into a new place. So I want to put it to you this way. The worst failure you could have when you go to a new environment, if you fell flat on your face, you'll actually fall forward from where you were standing when you were just staying in the same spot. So you literally have nothing to lose, even if it goes to complete doo-doo. You're going to be further ahead. Not to mention, people are going to respect the fact that you've done something new and different, which builds your brand as a man who takes risks, who is confident in his abilities, and is willing to bet on himself. And I'm telling you, as a man who's decided to do that, no, it was not easy. It's hard every day. But when I wake up in the morning in my bed, in my apartment, I'm like, damn, man, I bet on myself. And that feels so unbelievably amazing. And I'm addicted to it. And that gets me up earlier and earlier every day because I get to actually live this life as opposed to thinking about what it might have been if I did.
Oh, I love that. I am addicted to it as well. There was so much fear around leaving America for the first time. When I first moved to Israel, there was fear around leaving Israel when I started traveling in Europe. And there was fear around moving to Australia. And then this time moving to Budapest. But every time it has been not to the detriment, but actually to the success, and showing myself massive amounts of gratitude and self-love that I step into that courageous, okay, brave, valor that we all hold inside as men. and we just need to unleash it from within and go and take that risk and take that action. And literally, you can move mountains if you get out of your home and start traveling the world and living in different places and experiencing different cultures and facing that adversity. So that was why I brought it up. And I love the way that you put it. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, dude.
We're into our final question, which is, if you could evolve your business and dating life over the next 12 months, how would that look as we go into a new year?
The number one thing for me is just client acquisition and getting my clients huge results. I think everything else stems from there. And as far as dating, I'm not super worried about it. Like, I think as maybe some of you could relate to or understand, when you're on your purpose, people can see it, people can feel it, and you're putting that vibration out into the world. And I want to be clear with you guys who are listening here, and I know Dave can relate to this too. Once you're locked in on your why, on your story, on why you believe what you believe, and you're able to put it out to the world, you're going to notice that you stand with a better posture. You have a smile on your face when you're not thinking about it, and people take notice. That's just a fact of life. And from there, I have women hit me up. I have people like, hey, what are you up to? Can we hang out or whatever? And I'm not putting a huge amount of effort into it. So when I say for dating, I'm just not worried about it at all, because those things will become apparent to me and I'll know what to do with them when they're there. I'm all about growing my business and helping people to unlock that next level in themselves.
Who are the people that you really want to help? If someone's listening to this right now and they're like, I wonder, what would it be like working with Steven?
I want to help entrepreneurs. So my mission is to help 1,000 entrepreneurs unlock their story and build a profitable speaking career. So that could be in many different ways, but mainly as entrepreneurs, our stories, the things that we've been through, are the biggest currency for people to work with us. And entrepreneurs just hide behind their product and hope that their product will tell enough of a story. And I'm here to tell you that that's not the right way to go. Not into 2021, guys. Like, all the stuff that worked in 2019 or you've been testing in 2020, your story is the best and most powerful device to authentically build a brand that will never leave you. That's what I would put out to the world. So if you want to work with me, you want to learn more about it, let's jump into a DM. You could talk to me in the DGE group and just let's get to know each other, man, because you got to own your own story as a business owner, and even more so as a man to succeed in society, because you got to bring value if people are going to mess with you.
Cool. So they can find you in my group. They can find you where else on the web?
I'm on Instagram at Steven Steers _, on every platform as Steven Steers. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you want. And I'd love to meet you. I'd love to talk to you and figure out how to help if I can. And if I can't, let's just keep rapping and elevating the consciousness of all of us men out here, because we damn sure need it right now.
Beautiful. This has been a lot of fun. Obviously, you guys know the deal. If you like the episode, the only price is to drop a comment, show some love, share it with a friend. If you're interested to learn more about the Dave Gold Evolve Mastermind, as Steven was talking about, shoot me a message right now. We've got an excellent opportunity to bring on a few guys. We're going to do one-on-one coaching, group calls. You're going to be a part of an amazing accountability group. Steven, thank you so much for joining the podcast. And we look forward to seeing what 2021 holds for you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you again for having me. And for all the guys out here, stay up, own your story. You can't lose.
Beautiful. Talk soon. Peace.
Peace.